So these past few years have been marked with the craze of non-fungible tokens, right, NTFs. But there is something in our lives, it's one of our biggest assets that is not perfectly fungible, but if we can make it more fungible, it would be infinitely more useful. In fact, I would argue if it became perfectly fungible, we'd have a heck of a lot more of it to begin with, and every unit of it would be much more flexible. I'll let you pause the video to think about what this asset I'm talking about is. I'm talking about our time, obviously. And unfortunately, it is highly infungible. And to give you an idea of how infungible it is, I work at a tutoring center right now, and I was trying to rearrange some scheduling because my work is spread out across 6 days, and I looked at the schedule and I noticed I had a colleague who had the same problem, and I was thinking the two of us ought to sit down and see if we can consolidate it so we each go in there for 4 days, and maybe we'll have to rearrange a couple students, but maybe hopefully we can find a few that are more flexible. I was thinking of doing that, but then after I sat down with my colleague, I discovered that would require us to learn a couple of additional subjects, and he had other limitations to his schedule. So neither of us mind working whatever it was, 30, 35 hours, right? We just want it to be consolidated to 4 or 5 days instead of 6 days, right? But if in a world where time were perfectly fungible, first of all, neither of us would mind working 6 days anymore if time were perfectly fungible, right? It's just like if I wanted to buy a gold coin and maybe I can only buy a quarter of an ounce there, another half an ounce there, another 2 ounces there. I can always melt it together, right? Unfortunately, you can't melt time in a melting pot in some way, right? Okay, here's another example. Right now, I'm programming an AI. Well, the example I just gave shows that time is not fungible across people, right? Your hour is different than my hour. That problem I don't expect to solve. What's really frustrating is that my time isn't even fungible with my own time, right? So for example, I'm programming an AI for the game of Ticket to Ride. Now let's suppose it takes 100 hours to program that game for it to be ready for the Computer Olympiad. That's a reasonable amount of time. Now, if I only get the 100 hours in increments of 1 hour apiece, right, an hour after work every day for 100 days, it's kind of hard to program that, right? If I have 100 hours in a row across 4 days that I'm free, right, it's also hard to get that done, right? If I had 10 hours a day for 10 days, especially if they're not back-to-back, right, if I have 10 hours a day for 4 days in a row, and then there's a break, and then another 6 days. Oh my God, that's perfect for programming Ticket to Ride, right? And unfortunately, if you think about it, all the different ways that you can conserve your time rarely give you a big block of time, right? Imagine you quit smoking, you quit binge eating, you quit masturbating. That only frees up 10 minutes here and 20 minutes there, right? And it would be nice if you could put that into a big melting pot and consolidate that all into like a 2-week vacation, right? And unfortunately, nobody has really thought about a way to do it. Let me give you another example where if we could turn our non-fungible time, right, our NFT, into fungible time, right, where this would be really, really useful. Imagine, eventually, hopefully I'll travel again, right? I talked extensively about traveling to Poland. Now, kind of hard to believe, but I have some pretty high-profile friends over there, and one of them is also auto-romantic, and I want to convince her to marry herself, and I hope to go to her wedding ceremony. Now, what would really be nice is when I do travel to Poland, if I don't have to waste a third of my trip sleeping over there, right? If I could just sleep more back home where it's boring, travel there, and spend a good 2 weeks solid, right? And unfortunately, our sleep schedules are not perfectly fungible. They are somewhat, right, but not perfectly. You can maybe get away with sleeping 5 hours a night for a few weeks and come back and recover from that, right? Anyways, whoever can turn our non-fungible time into somewhat fungible time, they deserve a big Nobel Prize, right?